Hello and welcome to the Dark Mount video review for the Warbotron Airburst. It's a third-party representation of Blast Off. And if you notice he is sitting a little funny, that is because I, like several other reviewers, have an issue with the landing gear here and there. Several other people have had problems where when they've pulled these out, it's kind of broken them and the wheels don't stay in anymore. And my issue is that I actually just can't get them out at all. I've tried several different tools. They're just in there, and I'm not going to try to pry them out too hard because I don't want to break them and have them look like terrible on the front of the figure. So I just leave these things in, which is a little unfortunate because that means that he kind of doesn't sit very well on his alt mode. He looks like he's nosediving. Obviously it should be something more along the lines of this, but I can't really do anything about that, and I'm not going to risk breaking my figure. So that is a definite knock against this figure in terms of quality control. When it comes to third-party figures, you are paying more money, thus I have a much higher expectation of what I want, and I do not want a figure coming to me that is essentially malfunctioning. I mean, it's not an electronic device, so it's not that big of a deal, and definitely not going to be displaying this guy in his vehicle mode. He's either going to be in bot mode or combined eventually, so this isn't that big of a deal in terms of play value or display for me, but just in terms of, I mean, having a product that doesn't show up not working properly, that's definitely a knock. So this is their first release. I'm not going to knock them too hard on that. Everything else about the figure is pretty decent. I have one other gripe, and I will get into that later. But this is definitely something to keep an eye on. If you're one of those people who gets bugged by this kind of stuff, I've seen it on several different people's figures, so be very wary. Just keep that in mind. So, other than that, I don't have any complaints in his vehicle mode. There's a little bit of gapping up here, but it's not the substantial gapping you see in some other reviewers, and I will get into that during transformation because frankly, a lot of them are doing something wrong. So, well, not wrong because it's not specified in the instruction, but they're not doing something the best way that they could be doing it. He is obviously a space shuttle. He is a pretty decent representation of a space shuttle, although he's not really accurate to any real-world models, as people have complained, but that does not bug me. He's a transformer. I don't need him to be exactly accurate to an Earth mode. He's obviously a space shuttle. Like, come on, guys. He's a kind of a... I don't even know what kind of brown. Like a really light milk chocolate brown. It's kind of a strange color, and then this very, very deep kind of plum or deep, deep, deep purple, and then this kind of light purple or magenta or violet or something along here. And that's about it, other than some yellow details that they have picked up and a couple gray molded plastic bits. On his underside, you can't really see very much. You can see his head. It's your choice whether or not you want to rotate that. I usually try to refrain from putting stress on ball joints by repetitively spinning things around on them, so I don't bother. But that's up to you. For a size comparison, here he is next to the Generations Bumblebee. So he's a pretty big space shuttle, but obviously he's not in scale for a space shuttle. Transformers scale, lol. To transform Blast Off, we'll start by just pulling these guns off. And one thing I will mention, I do not plug these in all the way. Ever since I did plug these in all the way, I've had some issues with another piece connecting in his bot mode. I'm pretty sure that there are these little molded in slits on the top of the ports there, And I think the fact that the plastic is thinner allowed it to spread out a little bit when I plugged this in and loosened those holes up. So you can also plug those in under here. And I would probably suggest you do that because, well, the wings also peg on and off. Surprise. Just because I'm concerned that these actually are too big for these holes in terms of letting them hold other things later on, which I will point out when we get there. Which is now. Pop this whole back part off, and these are the two parts here that used to, when I first got this figure, peg into these holes very securely, and they end up pegging into his arms in robot mode. They still peg in, but they're loose as all hell, which is really kind of disappointing, and especially one is especially loose, but they're both pretty loose. And they were not loose at all until I plugged these two side weapons in all the way. So like I said, I'm pretty sure that those holes got stretched out, and these don't stay in as tightly as they used to, which is unfortunate. Grab these two slider bits right here, and pop out the missiles. And you can set these off to the side. On the robot proper, want to come over here, pull up these tabs like so. Fold these wingtips down like so. You'll see a tab right here, which will peg into this hole on both sides, like so. You can then pull these down and rotate. These are very tight. You can kind of push those back for now. Once you've done that, just give these a pull, and you do want to continue to pull them until they pop. It's probably easier if you split them first. You want to make sure that the legs go all the way back. As you will see later in my review during articulation, I did not have the legs popped out all the way, so it limits knee articulation. But if they're popped out all the way, you will get back to here. Now these pieces right here are the arms. And some reviewers and some people have complained that they do not stay together very closely. And the problem there is pretty simple. When you fold these in, you're going to want to have the hands with the thumbs and the fingers facing outward. And I will admit, these hands are really obnoxious to get in and out of there. I always have to use some kind of tool. They're very tight. So you can, say, fold them in like this. However, you'll see the hands actually stick out a bit like that. They don't sit flush. So if you do that and you try to put these together, it creates a pretty ugly gap, which is pretty sizable. And I'm pretty sure that's where a lot of people are having issues, because when they open these up, they have them in every other orientation except the proper one that actually allows it to sit flat, which is this. And as you can see, this is totally flat. So you want to pull the arms out, pull the hands out, place in very tight pieces. And then you want to come around to these parts and fold them up along the sides of the arms. And then fold the shoulders out like that. Sorry, fold them out forward. And then, if you notice, this little piece up here is not a straight tab, it's kind of a trapezoid. This end here is wider than the top up here, which helps keep these two pieces together and helps keep it snug up against there. So what you want to do is apply light pressure here to allow it to clear. And then fold that part back. You can fold these two little nubs in like that. And then what you want to do here is, these things are on a little joint like this. Push them out about to here, and that should allow you to turn them around without any interference, and then you can scoot them the rest of the way down. So again, scoot it out to about here, twirl it around, and scoot it down. You want to straighten the arms out. Rotate the hands. Straighten the legs out. Fix your heels. And then you can flatten these two to the back. And you can do a number of things with this. You can fold this all the way down and leave it kind of pointing outwards. You can leave it hanging down. You can fold this up and in like that. Unfortunately, it doesn't tab in anywhere, so there's nothing you can do that's going to keep it totally flush. But that does a pretty decent job. And for his weapons, he's got his two guns, which he can hold. And then he also has these two bits that you took off of the actual shuttle mode. And here's what I was talking about before. These used to very securely tab in here. And they still do tab in. I mean, they're not falling off, but they're pretty loose, and especially this one is pretty loose. This one is also decently loose, but not as bad. So I think I'm just going to have to thicken up those holes with something, which is a little unfortunate. It's not the end of the world. They still stay in. He still looks good. Just kind of nitpicking. And there you have Airburst, or Blast Off, in his robot mode. For a size comparison, here he is next to the IDW Generations Goldbug Bumblebee mold. And you can see he is quite a bit taller than him. He's a little bit bigger than a normal Generations Voyager, so that's pretty cool. For articulation, his head is on a ball joint, and it is quite free. His little shoulder pads here are on both ball joints as well as swivels. His arms have full rotation, however the back kibble back here gets in the way a little bit. And they can also move in and out like that on the transformation joint. They have in and out movement here, a swivel here, double arm bend, swivel at the wrist, and hand articulation. This little flap lifts up here, so you get full forward and backward movement, as well as inward and outward. You have an upper thigh swivel, and a knee that you don't get that much of a bend out of. And the legs are also on a bit of an angle, which is kind of strange, which means that you really need to have him stand at least this far apart, or else his legs won't be straight. This is at a bit more of an angle than normal, because it was not pulled out, but they are still at a slight angle. So you get about that much out of the knee bend. You don't get any forward movement. You have movement there in the foot, and then you also have toe, but it is very tight and mostly for transformation. And then you have heel articulation, kinda. So he is definitely a very posable figure. So, all in all, I like this figure. I'll be honest, it doesn't wow me as much as I wanted it to. I am a huge Blastoff fan, and when I was a kid, I actually did not have Bruticus. I only had Blastoff. I had the G2 white and purple Blastoff, and it was one of my favorite toys ever. So I was looking for a little bit more nostalgia factor. Obviously, they're not going for the G2 paint job, which I think most people are probably happy about. I know there has been some complaint about him being brown, but I think people would probably be a little bit more upset if he was white with giant purple polka dots all over him. So yeah, probably a good color choice on their part. I know a lot of people are not too fond of his purple light piping, but I've got to be honest, I like his head sculpt, and I actually don't mind the purple. It's not like it's like green or something random that's just not in keeping with the Decepticons. I mean, I don't know. That's an acquired taste in my opinion. I can understand why some people might not like it, but really the only complaints that I have with this figure are the ones that I already mentioned, which are specifically the fact that these don't peg on as tightly as I want them to anymore, ever since I used the ports for the guns, which you would think wouldn't be a problem since they are both designed for the toy. So there's clearly some tolerance and quality control passes that this could have gone through to be perfect. And my other issue is these landing gear. It's really sucky that they're stuck in there, and it's even suckier that I've seen them just like flat out break on other people's figures. So that's kind of stupid. For a figure that is third-party pricing, I would expect that kind of stuff not to be an issue. I mean, come on, guys. But other than that, it's a solid figure. I think I probably like it a little bit less than other standalone limbs from other combiners. I'm not sure I like it as much as the Menasor Fans Project combiners, and I probably like it about as much, maybe a little bit less than the TFC and MMC combiner figures. It's good, don't get me wrong, there's just nothing on it that like wows me necessarily. I like the design, I like the panel detailing. Like I said, I'm a fan of the head sculpt. It just, for some reason, nothing on this figure makes me go, wow, that's awesome! Where I have felt that way about other figures, but like I said earlier in the review, I'm probably going to be displaying this guy like I do all of my combiners in their combined form, and I'm a pretty big fan of the Warbotron combined look, so this figure is good for what it is. As a standalone figure, not necessarily amazing, but still a good figure if you're in need of a Blastoff. There's not really a better option out there. So, I do recommend this figure, but with the caveat that I recommend it much more if you plan on getting the entire Warbotron combiner, because then I think it definitely justifies itself. If you're just going for this as a standalone Blastoff, that's your call. I still think it's a good figure. I probably would still have picked it up if it was not part of a combiner, but I don't know if I would be as happy with the fact that I picked it up if it was a standalone figure. I like the figure, but knowing that it is going to eventually become a limb for a combiner that I know I'm going to like a lot makes me like it a lot more than I probably would. So take that for what you will. I think it's a pretty good figure, but like I said, for third-party prices, you gotta really love these things before you're gonna plunk down like 70, 80 bucks on something. So, alrighty guys, thank you for watching, and I will be back with I think I'm doing AoE Leader Optimus next. So I will see you guys then, and thanks for watching.